This is the book of Zephaniah, chapter 3, verse 5, and it reads, "The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame." Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahahakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashah Barazal, Prophet of Doom from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. But first and foremost, I want to declare fair use, according to the Copyright Act of 1976, as stipulated under Section 107. There's no monetary gain from this video. It is explicitly presented under the specifications under the Copyright Act of 1976, Section 107. All right. See the title here. Got this article from Newsbreak via shinemycrown.com. Put a link to this in the description box as well as the comments. But it's titled here, "She Wouldn't Leave Her Husband. Married Woman's Affair with Sugar Daddy Ends in Death of an Entire Family." And man, I read this article. Like I said, I won't bore you with that. I'll just play the news clip that's nested within it. But yeah, she played a terrible game, and not only did she lose, you can see her family lose, and the man she's involved with. All right, but just had no shame. All right, this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 30, verse 20, and it reads, "Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth, and saith, I have done no wickedness." All right, you can see all the evidence there. She just has no shame, no accountability. Okay, saying she didn't do nothing, but we know according to the scriptures, and this is, both the victims as well as uh, the offender, Northern Kingdom. All right, yeah, you know, one heck of a judgment by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, but she just didn't care, you know, and obviously, she had been telling this guy that she was going to leave her husband, but hey, when she didn't, um, hey, it is what it is. So let me get to the article here and go straight down. Like I said, I'll put a copy of this in the description box, and you can. That's the family there. All right, that's the family, and so the video shouldn't be too far. Here it is, right here. All right.
Right now at 4 o'clock, horrific new details of the death of a Berks County couple and their one-year-old son. Today, authorities revealed that they were all allegedly murdered by the same man and an apparent jealous rage. The victims' bodies found in different locations across the county over the course of 1 week. It is Monday afternoon. I'm Brian Taft.
The story is hard to believe. I'm Tamala Edwardson for Sarah. And the big story on Action News is this update today and the tragic murders of 3 family members. Authorities say the mother and father were shot on different days in separate locations. The young boy was then allegedly tossed into a muddy swamp and left to die.
As we said, the details are difficult to hear. Action News reporter Walter Perez live in Reading this afternoon with the update. Walter.
Well, Brian and Tam, every now and then we report on a story involving acts of cruelty that simply take your breath away. This is one. Investigators in Berks County now say that one of the victims, 31-year-old Geraldina Peguero Mancebo, was involved in some kind of relationship with the suspect, 61-year-old Jose Rodriguez. Apparently, that relationship led to a misunderstanding that sent Rodriguez into a rage a bit more than 2 weeks ago.
The defendant indicated to detectives that he was infuriated because he said that Geraldina was taking his money, and he admitted that he shot Geraldina in the back of the head.
Berks County DA John Adams says that shooting occurred in Ontaloni Township as Geraldina was holding her 1-year-old son, Jaden. Adams says Rodriguez then grabbed the toddler and took him to a shallow, murky pond nearby, tossed him into the water, and simply walked away.
The defendant confirmed that Jaden was alive when he threw him face down in the muddy water.
But Adams says the suspect's rampage was not over yet. The next day, he met up with Geraldina's husband, Junior Cabrera Colon, in Redding, shot him in the back of the head, and then dumped his body in this nearby park. Investigators say Rodriguez has since confessed to all 3 murders. The district attorney says he has prosecuted a long list of horrific crimes over the years, but nothing quite like this.
I can't imagine anything more horrifying than throwing that 1-year-old child into that pond of water, and that child is left there to die.
Now, the couple leave behind 3 other children between 8 and 13 years of age. Meanwhile, the suspect, Jose Rodriguez, faces a long list of charges, including abuse of a corpse and 3 counts of first-degree murder. Adams says he's considering seeking the death penalty in this case. Reporting live from Redding, Walter Perez, Channel 6 Action News.
Man. All right. This is Book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25, verse 19. And it reads, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. All right. And what is that portion of a sinner? All right. Well, we know what sin is. 1 John 3 and 4. All right. Which is whosoever committeth sin transgresseth the law. For sin is transgression of the law. All right. And what is the wages of sin? Death. Romans 6 and 23. So that's what happened. That was the portion of a sinner. She was judged. Okay. But not only her, the family too, man. But as the scripture said, we don't know what they were doing, what that father had done, or what that little boy had done. I know, 1-year-old, seems harsh and cruel, but, we know that no one perishes being innocent. And just because you are not judged in the life that you're currently in, you can come back and get that judgment. All right. That's 2nd Ezra 14 and 35. All right. It says, for after death shall the judgment come, when we shall live again, and then shall the names of the righteous be manifest or made known, and the works of the ungodly shall be declared. So, yeah, I know it was a 1-year-old, a little boy, but, we don't know what his transgression was before he came back, as the boy that he died as. All right. That's just how it is. These scriptures are proven true. All right. But that Rodriguez guy, man, yeah, you gotta pay too, man. This is 1st Ezra chapter 4, beginning in verse 26. And it reads, yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women and become servants for their sakes. Yeah. She didn't, laid that box on you, man. You paying her money, knowing that she's married, And yeah, yeah, this did not end well. Okay, yeah, you ran out of your wits. You know, Proverbs 31:3 says that man is not supposed to give their strength to women. And that's exactly what you did here. Okay, it says verse 27. Many also have perished, have erred, and sinned for women. You, you know, could committed not only adultery, but you also murdered. You know, people of your same tribe. You know, fellow Israelites. You know, so at least from appearance, you know, just never know. They have, you know, have the appearance of a Northern Kingdom. All right, so yeah, that man. I mean, her series, her acts or series of acts got a whole family off. But you know, that was their lot. You know, that judgment. All right. This is Proverbs chapter 6, beginning in verse 32, and it reads, "But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul." And yeah, that dude is facing the death penalty. You know, if not time on multiple charges, a plethora of them. Okay. It says, "A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away." All right. Your dishonor is what you did. And that wound, you know, once they find out in that prison what you did to a kid, man, you know, yeah, yeah, your reproach shall not be wiped away. You know, you're gonna also receive judgment for what you did. And depending on how long you know, you sitting on that death row, they're not gonna let that slide away. You know, it's not gonna be wiped away. Okay, verse 34. It says, "For jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance." Now, this can go both ways. You know, typically this is for the husband, you know, who uh, whose wife was violated. So, you know, and I say that to say, you know, if the husband who was married to her found out, you know, he had every right to take her and Rodriguez out, you know, because of adultery. You know, that's in the law. You know, and I'll get to that. All right. It says, therefore, but in this case, you know, it's Rodriguez. You know, he's jealous, went into a rage. You know, took her out, took the husband out, and the 1 year old out. All right. It says, therefore, he will not spare in the day of vengeance. And he didn't. You know, if it was just her, hey, one thing. But no, he took the husband and the kid out. All right. Took them both out. But, you know, that judgment is you know, it's ramping up. We in those days. You know, you seeing more and more stories like this. You know, and you know, you Israelite women, you better wise up. You better wise up because things are changing. All right. You already have if you don't have a man already, you already don't have any protection. You know, and then the ones that do have men, you know, you can't be putting them in positions like this. You know, that's just wicked. All right. Let's get into the law. This is Leviticus chapter 20 and verse 10. And it reads, "And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death." Well, she's already gone. All right. And as that news report said, that, hey, he's staring at the death penalty. And that is the result of adultery. You're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to do it. I don't care how good looking she is, how bad that body is. It's not worth your life. But these Jakes didn't know that. She didn't, and he didn't. All right. I'll close out with this. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 9 and verse 16. And it reads, "The Lord is known by the judgment which he executed. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands." Hagion Selah. All right. And we know the wicked is Esau Edom, the so-called white man, according to Malachi 1 and 4. But you got 2/3 of Jake. They can also be wicked. That's why, they're going to perish right along with Esau Edom, in that day of judgment. So, yeah, the Lord is known by his judgments. And he will will have no problem taking you out when you immersed in wickedness. All right. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rahak HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Arkim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth that be like to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharala, Abba Shalom.